Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to this special program on Humanity Rising that's synchronic with the Conference of Parties in Glasgow. This is the fourth day that governments and major corporations and financial institutions and civil society and scientists are meeting in Glasgow for the 26th year to try to see whether there's something that the human race can collectively do about global warming. Over the last several days, we've heard commitments around deforestation and methane. Yesterday, from the financial institutions,
las instituciones financieras
commitment to move away from investing in fossil fuels. Civil society has been reporting each day from Glasgow and commenting on the mastery with which our government and financial leaders can say what they know the public wants to hear, but then very skillfully in the language of the agreements make it possible to effectively kick the ball down the field and not do very much at all. And therein lies the crucible of the predicament that the human race is in 75 years after we've learned about climate change, and still our governments and elites are not really doing what is necessary to prevent the accelerating climate turbulence that we now see all around us. I happen to be in a car today, not in my study, because the internet was not working due to all the turbulence that's happening in California between drought and fires and now rain and floods. So as I speak to you today, I'm handicapped just because of our inability to really grapple with these fundamental issues. So I want to welcome you in that spirit of challenge, but deep hope, because each day we've been hearing from people around the world that are literally working their hearts out on various solutions, regenerating the global ecosystem. As you know, we've been broadcasting live over dozens, in fact, scores of live streaming partners. And today we want to announce that we're also live streaming in Spanish. And I really want to thank Carlos Paz of the Hans Kung Foundation in Colombia, who has made the arrangements. It's really been an extraordinary contribution that Carlos and his foundation have made. And so if you want to listen to this program in Spanish, go to your lower right of your Zoom panel, and you can click on a button and you can hear this program in Spanish. We have two simultaneous Spanish translators from Bogota there, who will be providing the translation, not only today, but for the rest of the COP. So that's an enhanced live streaming that we're bringing into this very important global conversation. And we'll also be hearing from various people in Glasgow. So the theme for today is health in the face of Code Red. Yesterday, we looked at endangered and extinct species. The day before, we looked at regenerative agriculture. But today, we want to look at human health in the midst of climate turbulence that's escalating all around us. And to introduce our panel, we will be turning to Stephanie Mines in a few moments. But first, everyone, let's just take a moment in the tumult of everything that's happening in our world, to just center ourselves in our bodies, take a breath, and if you can, just listen to your heartbeat just for a minute in a spirit of gratitude and deep thanksgiving that wherever you are, whatever is going on, that you're alive. We're all alive at this most extraordinary moment in the human journey. Thank you, everyone. Now, with an open heart and a heart full of gratitude for each and every one of you who are joining our session today, I want to commence our program by first turning actually to someone who's just come in from Glasgow, Dita Vizozo. I also want to just note that Shelley Alcorn, the Chief Operating Officer at Ubiquity University, is live tweeting this session. So we're going out global through all kinds of channels today on this very important moment where for 12 days, the world is focusing on climate change and what we most urgently need to do to secure humanity's future by coming back into alignment with Mother Earth. Dita has been joining us each day there from Glasgow. She's a farmer. She's a wee wilder. She's a member of Grassroots to Global and has been there at the COP. So Dita, a very warm welcome on our fourth day. And just tell us what's going on.
Thank you. And just checking that my audio is working. My computer is playing tricks on me recently. So please just let me know if there is a problem. Welcome, everyone. I want to also not forget the power of welcome. And I love the way these sessions start. I feel so welcome. And I think that's one of the things that are missing to some degree in many of our cultures, and perhaps also influencing how we interact with the environment. I'm going to share my screen to just talk about some things that I experienced yesterday in the evening and today that I think touch also into health and how we are preventing our health and the health of the climate with a lot of our policies and decisions. So here we go. So yesterday I was at the Rights for Nature Tribunal, which is happened yesterday, is happening today, and will happen again on Sunday, where many issues regarding abuse to not only peoples but also to nature are discussed, and actions are being actually asked for. And that's the place that I have a bit of a trouble, and the questions that I want to continue asking to this tribunal is how actually are we going to implement the decisions that these tribunals take. And I just want, touching in the part of the health that I think is so important, I listened to Tom Goldtooth, who was speaking as a bringing part of the case for the crimes against nature and against original peoples everywhere. So I'm just going to let him speak.
Applying sharing our spiritual knowledge, because lacking in these negotiations is understanding for humanity on what is their responsibilities, duties, and responsibilities to respect the sacredness of Mother Earth. That is lacking in these hallways of the governments. So that's one thing that we have to apply, is that there has to be a better understanding of that. And traditional knowledge is really important for us to lift up. And so within that, we have a report, Indigenous resistance to carbon. It was a joint report that we just released a couple months ago, along with Oil Change International, that where we looked at how we as Indigenous peoples, in our resistance to shut down pipelines, in our resistance to shut down the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, in our resistance to shut down and stop the permitting and licensing of fossil fuel projects in the United States and Canada, that the resistance, standing on the line and using our Indigenous sovereignty and our self-determination in the hallways of these colonial governments, lifting up our inherent rights, that's been very effective. And it's actually mobilized support from the non-Indigenous movements to stand with us, using our Indigenous rights. So the application of rights, Indigenous rights, has been a solution. But also we work with many communities back in the United States and also globally. I've seen where there's a movement towards communities building around food sovereignty, building around how they want to reduce their carbon footprint. And even in the cities, I believe that we have the ability of humanity to reduce our dependency on our addiction to fossil fuels. And that's something we will continue to advocate for. The technology around solar, the technology around wind, the technology with using the waves of the ocean. These are very important, and the technology and funding is there. But we have to be very cautious though with that, and building solutions is not to give in with some big money coming down to participate in this transition around embracing these false solutions we're talking about. So we have the ability to do that.
And and this,
Os conhecimentos tradicionais.
This is in Portuguese. I just want you to listen to his voice and his message, even if you don't understand it. And the gist of it is that the wisdom that is in his land, in his people, is the wisdom of medicine, of health, of keeping the forest alive. And as we tried to find these climate solutions that are based on technology, his people are being drawn out of the forest so that we can have plantations and sequester carbon in modern ways, while the forest is basically dying. So I'm just going to let him speak for a bit.
Dos povos indígenas como a verdadeira solução para as crises climáticas, para a destruição. Terceiro Terceira pergunta. Terceira proposta. Que este tribunal possa garantir, possa orientar e possa recomendar aos órgãos superiores de que devolva os nossos territórios sagrados.
So what he's asking, what they are asking, is that the governments of the world come up with solutions so that their sacred territories are given back to the people, that their sacred territories where the access, the knowledge, the ways of teaching how to be part of the world in a way that is not damaging is being given to the new generations. So that's their ask. That's what I'm hearing from a lot of the people that are perhaps not in the official talks, but are actually the ones who are not only suffering from the consequences of climate change, and that's only one thing, of pollution, of greed, of monoculture. They are the ones that are suffering, and they are the ones who have the solutions for their environment. And we are, to some degree, I include myself, from here, from the north, from the rich countries, we are preventing that from happening. So that's what I'm hearing, particularly yesterday and today. There's a lot about justice in general, not just related to climate, but how that actually affects the climate, and how the way the sovereign our own agency on our own health, how that could help not only change our view of nature, but actually be less intrusive. That's all from Glasgow today.
Thank you so much, Dita. I want to honor the courage of everyone here and of the Indigenous people that continue to step up despite the devastation of their cultures, their land, their languages, their very beings, that they courageously continue to share their wisdom with us. And to me, that is health. To me, that is resilience and buoyancy. And that is what we're here to talk about today, the true meaning of health, the true meaning of regeneration, and the true meaning, I would say, of consciousness. So I am so sorry that Jim Garrison, who is really the inspiration behind Humanity Rising and the Global Regeneration Corps, and I would say that we are here in this moment, a Global Regeneration Corps. Jim has lost his internet connection and given the space over to the group in his absence. I miss his accompaniment, and I will do my best to launch this program, Code Red for Health Justice. So in the face of climate disruption, the glaring inequities and perforated services of Western healthcare create a new kind of genocide that targets youth, communities of color, the elderly, pregnant women, babies and children, and all the hidden populations, the populations of neurodiverse people, of people who have differences in abilities, the houseless, migrants, and people with unresolved chronic health conditions that are often discounted by physicians. As someone who focuses on serving and empowering hidden populations, I know their underlying remarkable strengths. The survivors of domestic violence, torture, and sexual abuse who I serve teach me to believe in humanity, just as that esteemed gentleman mentioned, that he believes in humanity to break the addiction to fossil fuels. So the people I serve have taught me to believe in humanity. In researching neurodevelopment, differentiating shock from trauma, and focusing on interventions that unearth human resilience, I know that my vision of regenerative health is viable, a true solution, and that my cultural library of regenerative health resources that fuse ancient applications with neuroscience is a sure path to community-based cadres of regenerative health practitioners. I intend to see this established in my lifetime. I assembled this panel of women who know the true meaning of health, and I bring them together here with youth from Sierra Leone who embody that health. We are a living testimony to what a global regeneration core looks like. Vandana Shiva motivates me to step up like this before you today, which is, in all honesty, challenging for me. Her beauty, her intelligence, and the way she speaks for and to the people mentors me. You may know about her books, her awards, and her accolades, but who she is to me personally is more intangible. She spurs me beyond trauma, beyond despair, to a breakthrough to my own wholeness. Her existence gives me hope that I too can make a contribution to the children of the future, all of whom I consider to be my children. Woman Stands Shining, Pat McCabe, is a wellspring of authenticity. The accessibility of her wisdom is what I want to emulate. And I treasure both her mothering of her brilliant daughter, Lila June, and how she tends to her own mother, her personal mother, and our living earth mother. Pat is unifying, touchable, indigenous, evolving love. She is regenerative health. I invited Shamini Jain because she, like me, integrates biofield applications with science, and then she tells the truth about what medicine really is, saving it from the manipulative framework of industrialized, mechanistic, disrespecting, and violating practices that are not healthcare. I also invited her because she brings creativity back into the definition of health and healthcare where it belongs. Dr. Claire Wilox has been my colleague in a field that never leaves my heart: services to mothers and babies who experience pre and perinatal shock. When we free childbirth from the grip of patriarchal, controlling, and disconnected physicians, we will be one step closer to a thriving future for humanity. the integration of biofield therapies in recovery from the core shocks that afflict many of us as a result of this takeover of pregnancy and childbirth is another way in which Dr. Wilox and I are eternal comrades. I invited the courageous climate activist youth of Sierra Leone here because they embody regenerative health. Regenerative health means that we care for the land just as we care for the soil of our bodies. It means that we care for our people, our region, our true indigenous cultures, and our communities just as we breathe. Despite desertification, a crippling lack of resources, the rape of their culture and their land, these young people persist in finding viable education and nourishing their intelligence while at the same time being hardworking, grateful, regenerative innovators. And they are unifying, they are inclusive, they welcome intergenerational and intercultural problem solving with open arms. All of us together, all of us together, all of us together are a global regeneration core of solutions-oriented hope. We are the resilience that is underneath despair, trauma, even shock. We live in and with the resilience that buoys us forward beyond the data in another depth of possibility. This is what is happening outside COP26. This is where the real action is. So I welcome you to Code Red for Health Justice. And I'd like to begin with hearing from Aisha in Sierra Leone. Aisha, can you share with us your vision of regeneration for yourself, for your community, and for your country?
Hello. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Aisha.
Sorry, what's the question again?
Yes, Aisha, can you speak to us about your vision of regenerative health for yourself, for your community, and for your country?
Okay, based on women empowerment or?
Yes, please. That will be perfect. Yes, please.
Well, first of all, I just wish to see like women in our community, in my community, to be treated equally, just as they treat men. I give them the rights they deserve, the opportunities they deserve. Exactly. So I want to see them partake in activities that they should be taking part in, and just considered as people that only need to be in the kitchen doing domestic work and all of that. They need to also do things, good things, like contribute in creating the community, making the community a better place for everybody. Yeah, so that is the kind of that is what I wish to see happening in my community. I want to see women taking part in important activities like climate change, for example. I want people like women to also feel that they can do things, like they can make the world a better place. Not just it's not just the men that are capable of doing that. They can also do it. They are more than just wives and like maids, or I don't know, people that are not relevant in the community. They are also important. They should also feel important. Yeah. So that is what I want to say.
Beautiful, Aisha. And can you share with everyone a little bit about what your particular projects are that you want to move forward in your community?
Well, first of all, we want to work on creating a campaign to encourage, like, call in women who feel that they don't have a voice, who feel that they are not relevant in the community. Encourage them, like call them in and talk to them, encourage them, inspire them to empower themselves, to educate themselves. Those that are neglected, not educated, or those that feel that education is not important, that go for like other things like pregnancy. They prefer to get pregnant and get married and do other things. But we want to encourage them to see that education is important. They should educate themselves, empower themselves, partake in things that will make them feel that they are also powerful. They also have a voice. They have the ability to do great things in the community, in the world. So we want to create this campaign and call in women, not just women, girls as well. Call them in and inspire them, talk to them. We also wish to create this campaign would be in the via radio or television if possible, if we have the chance. Yeah, it will be through radio or television. Call in women, girls, to encourage them, discourage girls that involve themselves into teenage pregnancy. This is the biggest problem we face in Sierra Leone. There are so many girls out there who cannot further their education. Some of them, they just stop at secondary school level and they get pregnant, and once they do that, they no longer care to further, or they just feel that they can't go further anymore, so they just give up and just I don't know, ruin their future just like that. So we want to help them see the importance of education, discourage them from involving in this teenage pregnancy. So this is the aim of the campaign we want to start off with. That is just a first step towards creating this change. That's just our first step we wish to embark on. Campaign. That is the first thing. And during this campaign, we will also encourage them to take part in tree planting. Planting trees. We create groups, women and girls groups, to plant trees. Tree planting is a very important thing that we should embark on, not just us as Unions, but the world at large, because trees help a lot in the climate change. So we want to encourage them to create tree planting groups, and also embark on plastic waste reduction, because that is another big issue we face here in Freetown and Sierra Leone a lot. So this is what we want to encourage them to do in order to help them realize, feel that yes, they can also do something important. They can also be more than just mothers, more than just women that should be in the kitchen. They can also do something important, you know, to save the world and all that. So that is our second plan. And the third one is to try to sensitize parents who deprive their children of education, of their rights, their girl children, yeah, from education, because they feel that they do not deserve to be educated. They just deserve to be put into marriage at an early stage. They deprive them of the chance, the opportunity to educate themselves and empower themselves. So we want to also, through the radio sensitization or television sensitization, we will sensitize the parents to realize that it is important not just to educate boy children, but to educate the girls as well, because they are the leaders of tomorrow. So women have a very powerful, I don't know which word to use to describe this, how kind of loss, but women are very powerful. And when educated, they are like, I don't know, they can do great things. So it is important. We want to let them know that it is important to educate these girls and empower them. Yeah, so this is what we intend to do, not really.
Well done, Aisha, beautiful. And I want everyone to know that Aisha's video, The Future is Female in Sierra Leone, will be up, is already up, I believe, on the Ubiverse, and is available, as well as information about Aisha's project and the project of the entire cohort that she represents here. The other members are present, and Aisha has done an incredible job of speaking for all the youth that have come together here with so much courage from Sierra Leone. Thank you so much, Aisha. I'd like to now turn to Dr. Vandana Shiva to address the issue of Code Red for health justice and her understanding of regenerative health. Thank you, Vandana. Please, we are listening to wisdom.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And thank you to Jim for the introduction to the session. Also for the reminder that this is the 26th COP, Conference of Parties. What are they party to? They are party to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, a legally binding treaty that was signed at the Earth Summit in Rio, along with the Biodiversity Agreement. These are two legally binding treaties. In addition to that, there were two principles adopted. The polluter should pay, clear environmental law, and precautionary principle. If you are unsure, don't go ahead, because do no harm is the imperative of health. You don't risk causing harm. Now, I was at Rio, I was active in both treaties, I was working with my government, and it's a long story, I won't spend too much time on that. But over these many years, it's become very clear that biodiversity is the basis of health, of the planet as well as our health. And we are part of the planet, as Tom Goldtooth was saying. There is a total denial inside of the fact that the most important actor in climate change is the Earth herself. And even though there's wildfires and Jim has lost his connection, and there's storms and there's floods and there's cyclones, we keep pretending nothing is happening except a temperature rise in a certain degree. No, lots is happening. Gaia is furious because we have tampered with the health. Now, it wasn't going too well because the Kyoto Protocol itself was totally lost a decade and a half to allow the polluters to trade pollution with non-pollution. Now, you don't do that. Trade is a good with a good, a different kind of good maybe, but it still has to be good. You don't trade bad with good and call it trade. That's dumping. It is like the Catholic Church in the period of its decline used to have these things called indulgences, where the bishops would forgive you your sin of murder or whatever was the sin, as long as you brought him a little gold. Oh, by the way, Jim had reminded me that I should tell you what the noise behind me is. Today is a very sacred festival of India called Diwali. It's like the Christmas of India. And it's called the Festival of Lights, but it also becomes a festival of sounds because the crackers, even though they are banned under the Supreme Court order and arrests are keep getting made, but you know, in a noisy world, noise becomes a celebration. What do you do? But Diwali is a celebration of the victory of good over evil and of light over darkness. And so we would, before I came in, we were lighting lamps all over our place, which is the way we celebrate. And my mother used to light lamps of mustard oil. And she used to explain to us that, and now it's proven so scientifically that mustard oil, is an antifungal. We massage our babies with mustard oil. And when we light a lamp with mustard, this is the time the season is changing. So there's lots of viruses and bacteria in the atmosphere. And these beautiful sacred smoke is supposed to clear it up. Of course, when you get into all kinds of polluting smoke, it's a different matter. So happy Diwali to all of you. Festival of Lights for the whole world. Now coming back to Kyoto, basically allowed an increase in pollution and an increase in profits for the polluters. And the indulgences that the bishops used to take in the collapsing Catholic rule, I call these trades in pollution the indulgences of contemporary industrial globalized society. Yeah? That all you do is do a trade, an offset. There are lots of comments on why are there so many private jets in Glasgow. UN summits are supposed to be about governments. But this is important, that Copenhagen, the polluters, in effect, met outside and dismantled the UN framework. And inside, the countries were still negotiating. And the president of Bolivia, Evo Morales, an indigenous person, he got up and said, we were here to negotiate the rights of Mother Earth, not the rights of polluters. So I'm going to go back to Bolivia and call a citizen summit on climate change and rights of Mother Earth. And because Dita showed us the little visit to the Tribunal of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Mother Earth, I have put in the chat the Universal Declaration on the Rights of Mother Earth that we created because of the failure of Copenhagen. This was done in Bolivia. And this Rights of Mother Earth is the basis of the creation of a global alliance on the rights of nature. And I remember, the Westerners were having a problem. They said, we can't say Mother Earth. They were still scared of saying Mother Earth because colonialism had left such untouchability to that word. I'm quite glad that we are using Mother Earth in such a beautiful way. Jim used it, Stephanie, you used it, that the reality is, Mother Earth has given us birth. Mother Earth sustains us. No matter how much we deny and create constructions and scientific paradigms and technological paradigms and economic paradigms that are based on the denial that she's living, she's sacred, she's a mother, she is still the most powerful force. And if we work with love with her, if we work in service of her laws, then we can address climate change. And my work with protecting biodiversity, saving seeds, doing ecological agriculture has shown that in 20 years, we have changed the biosphere. If we do it on a global scale, while we keep the fossil fuel underground, we can undo the harm, but we must, of course, stop doing the current harm. It's scientifically proven, but the interesting thing is, Jim mentioned that there's been a commitment to stop deforestation by the year 2030. When you know something's wrong, you take a decision saying, I will not do this wrong anymore. I started my own ecological journey with a beautiful movement of women called Chipko, where women came out and said, these forests are our mothers. You cut them, you're causing floods, you're causing landslides, you're causing drought, and we will not let you cut them anymore. We're going to hug the trees. You'll have to kill us before you kill the trees. The word Chipko means to hug. That's where I got groomed in ecological activism. Early 70s, that's nearly 50 years ago. For a while, for a decade, the women kept acting, the government kept denying, till a flood hit all the way to Calcutta in the Ganges. And then the government realized what the women were saying was right, that the forests give us soil, water, and air, that the primary product is not timber and commodities and revenues. Because the government realized what they were spending on flood relief was hundreds of times more than the pathetic money they used to get as revenue from logging. In 1981, as soon as that awareness came, we managed to get a logging ban. We did not wait for another decade, let the loggers continue to destroy the mountain forests, let the floods keep coming, and then 10 years later, we'll think of something else. This procrastination is deliberate, because that procrastination is giving the window for forcefully and violently pushing more non-sustainable economies with the kind of greenwashing that Jim mentioned. Lots of time is needed for greenwashing. No time is needed for the right thinking and the right action. The minute you have that consciousness, you do the right thing. So over all these years, I basically started with the forest protection, but then I realized that agriculture, industrial agriculture was the single biggest cause for destruction of local communities, for livelihoods, for violence around the world. Then I did my book, Soil Not Oil, that 50% of the greenhouse gases come from an industrial globalized food system. And it's because it's based on chemicals that come from fossil fuel. Interestingly, chemicals are the missing piece. You know, they talk of forest and they talk of methane, and the nitrous oxide disappears. But nitrous oxide is 300 times more damaging to the planet than is carbon dioxide. Worse, the three sets of chemicals that go together in chemical farming, nitrogen fertilizer, pesticides, and herbicides, all three are not just damaging the earth, her biodiversity, her soils, her oceans. They are damaging our health. Toxic chemicals are at the root of so much disease, added with ultra-processed food. Take the processing and chemicals in food, 75% of the chronic diseases. But worse, when you shift an agriculture from the care of the land, from earth care, into profit making, then there's no limit. And that profit has to keep growing. Then those commodities have to become biofuel, those commodities have to become animal feed, the commodities have to keep on finding a new market. That is why the Amazon is being destroyed for GMO soya. They don't talk about GMO soya. They just talk about animal feed, or not even the animal feed, the animals. But if you shift from animals into a GMO soya diet, Impossible Burgers and Imagine Burgers, which are all failing, you know, all kinds of artificial foods. Because I started to save seeds when they wanted to patent seed. I said, but you don't create the seed. see it as its own integrity. It's its evolution, it's its self-organization. And today, I find that the companies that wanted to own the seed have joined hands with Silicon Valley. Now, here again is a big problem. They've made enough money. The 4 richest, 5 richest billionaires are all digital billionaires, all. Elon Musk, of course, through his electric cars. But interesting, no one asked the question, okay, the car is electric, but where did the electricity come from? Very often from the same coal-fired power plants. And no one asks, the fact that you're trying to create an artificial market for electric cars, you are dumping precious cars. They're doing it in India. They're making cars older than 10 years, illegal next year. But that means all that metal that was mined, again, you have to mine more metal. So I have always thought about the health of the planet and our health as connected through energy, the work you do, Stephanie, the energy fields, and materials. And the more you extract energy, no matter what the source, and no matter how much you extract materials, you are harming Mother Earth. So the health of the planet, our health is one health. They're not separable. And both are connected through a healing process. The word health comes from wholeness, being whole, being healthy. It comes from the same word that is holy. It's sacred. There's no separation in all of this. And these are the original meanings of the word health we have to reclaim, because the same chemical companies that give us toxics, that give us cancer, also are big pharma that's making money from our sickness, selling us products that make us sicker. And this is the moment we're in. The same processes that are making the planet sick with climate change are making us sick with cancer, with high blood pressure, with diabetes, with obesity, with infertility. Just the list I've got, we've actually done a whole calculation of what it's costing the world. Ill health. Ill health caused by a chemical empire based on fossil fuels. And that, you'll notice, is the part that never gets talked about. The toxic chemicals invading our bodies, the toxic chemicals invading the bodies of the earth, because that's where they want to perpetuate it. Even while yesterday, when people worry about why are the private jets there, well, actually they've got the people busy inside tearing down the old treaties. The rich countries are telling the poor countries, no. We can't increase funding. Well, they were supposed to give 100 billion after Copenhagen. My country has lost 87 billion in climate disasters this year. 1 year, one country, 87 billion. And they're talking of 100 billion. And meantime, they're taking our public money, our tax money, as subsidies for false solutions. These false solutions include more toxic agriculture. They include continuing for 10 years more, 15 years more, 20 years more, 30 years more, the system that is collapsing around us. But they want to use all of the public policy and all of the public money to hold this collapsing empire in place. Our little role is unleashing the power of our consciousness, unleashing the power of our solidarity, unleashing the power of truth, unleashing the power of a deep, deep, deep belief that we can work with the laws of the earth. We can work with the laws of health. We can work with each other to make change. At no point in history have brutal empires worked solutions from the top. Never. Never. Dictatorships don't make change to democracy from the top. It's always from the bottom. And health justice, to me, is justice for the rights of Mother Earth, justice for all the pluralism of knowledges, including our beautiful Ayurveda, all the amazing systems of knowledge of health that actually work. And the truth, to be able to speak, but this does not work. This is causing more harm. And this idea of wholeness as sacred, wholeness as truth, wholeness as interconnectedness is, I believe, what we are trying to both understand it in a deeper level and share with each other. Thank you.
Exquisite, Vandana. When I started Climate Change and Consciousness, it was based on the understanding that the critical transformational event that must happen is a transformation in consciousness. And Vandana at the 2019 gathering gave me this language of fossil fuel brains. We must come out of the fossil fuel brain to liberate what I call original brilliance and foment this groundswell of awareness and understanding and build regenerative health from the communities on up. So thank you so much, Vandana.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I'd like to turn now to Woman Stand Shining, Pat McCabe, to speak about her awareness, her experience, her lived experience of the meaning of regenerative health. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Wow, a beautiful panel so far. And thank you, Dr. Vandana Shiva. What an honor. So I was really appreciating hearing what Tom Goldtooth was saying there, and that was inspiring some of what I would like to say here now. And that is that, you know, one thing that I've been saying is that if sustainability is the highest and most sought after technology on the planet, who should we be talking to? We should be talking to those peoples who've known how to live in one place over an extended period of time, 1,000 years, 5,000 years, 10,000 years, 20,000 years in relative health, harmony, and happiness. And these are the people that we call indigenous. So to be indigenous means to be deeply, deeply, deeply of place. To be in place at such a level that our presence there causes the place to flower and fruit and thrive. And that the place causes the people to flower and fruit and thrive. And the people cause the place to flower and fruit and thrive. So it just keeps going back and forth and back and forth. So this is the level of deep sustainability that indigenous peoples have held. And so I want to point that out to us so that when we talk about wanting to give the proposals of giving land back to the peoples in Brazil, in so many places all over this continent of the Americas anyway, and in other places as well. It's not only some kind of economic justice. It's not only some kind of social justice action. Because eventually, as I believe it was Chief Seattle said, one day they're going to realize they can't eat money. One day they're going to find out they can't eat money. And I'm going to say we are coming upon that moment right now. And so the places that have been devastated by fires, by flooding, it doesn't matter how much money they have, they're never going to have the life back that they once had. And this is only the beginning of this climate disruption on the planet, right? And so what I want to say about the return of land to indigenous peoples is eventually we're not only going to be called upon or to stop, which we already are. I love that. I love that occasion, a chemical empire based on fossil fuel. That sums it up. So not only are we being called to stop that, but we are going to be stopped by the earth herself, which means at some point we're in the very near future, 5 years max, we're going to be called on to figure out how to regenerate lands. I believe this is something that Indigenous peoples can lead. And so this is really how I see the return of land to Indigenous peoples. It's not only for that specific people as real estate and dollar value being returned to them. It's the opportunity for human beings to participate in regeneration of Earth and Earth cycles from deep, deep science, deep, deep knowledge that goes beyond what Western science understands. So I wanted to point that out, and the level of relationship of Indigenous peoples with land is such that I will go so far as to say that I've been saying that culture is not a human construct. Culture is the Mother Earth expressing herself as human being in any given place. That's how deep the relationship is. So, I really want to shift that language about this return of land to Indigenous peoples from outside of the economic model, and just looking at how is humanity going to participate in restoration of Earth? Who has that knowledge truly? Who has the knowledge that's not based on profit? And I'm going to say that there's a lot of Indigenous peoples who still carry that knowledge. And it's not only Indigenous peoples, there are other peoples as well who have been maintaining that kind of knowledge. I know we have youth on here right now, and I wanted to spend a moment sending out a word to the young people here. I want to say thank you so much for your presence here. It makes me feel so good to see you here and to see you participating. And what I always say to the young people every chance I get is I say to them, you've got to want your life. You've got to want your life like this. You got to want it. You got to want it. You got to want your life. You're going to need that. You're going to need that level of passion here coming up. And so the fact that you're here right now tells me that you have that passion, and that makes me feel good. I want to say that, from my view, you came here for purpose. And I have to think that part of that purpose is to disrupt, these systems that never were designed placing life at the center. That were never designed to place life at the center. And these systems have been being developed and evolving for the last 5,000 years at least. And never once were they developed with putting life at the center. We forgot life. And so I urge you to have faith and trust in your own ideas, in what's arising inside of you. That is precious and valuable. That is an expertise that we really need here on this planet. And I trust what you're bringing forth. The final thing I really wanted to say here is I want to talk about wealth, because that's another part of the equation, right? So right now, I heard the statistic that it's 26 billionaires holding 50% of the Earth's wealth. So there's a lot of definition that I would like to understand about that saying, but I think we get the idea, and I think we're witnessing something, if not exactly that, something very close to that. And so I've been working with wealth holders for the last 2 or 3 years, and what's being said in those circles is that very soon here, and this goes back to Chief Seattle's statement, one day they're going to realize they can't eat money. That wealth that's sitting in the digital world is going to become valueless in the face of Earth changes. So really, there's only a small window of opportunity for wealth holders to make their wealth count in terms of having real impact in the physical world. And so with this group of wealth holders, we are working on reimagining money and protecting the sacred. And that involves bringing to consciousness the unconscious agreement that money is. I mean, we just made it up, right? It's totally a human construct. This is not coming from Earth. This is not coming from life. It's a mechanism that we made up. And so we can assign whatever meaning to it we want to have. Right now, it's being used in a pretty violent way. So in this process of reimagining money, this prayer came up, and I'd like to read it here. This is upon the opening of a certain gathering of the consciousness of money and the new consciousness that we want to give it. And so it's a kind of fund of sorts. And so we called it the third drawer. So this is upon the opening of the third drawer. Together we make a place where thriving life, where future, where what is holy can meet, align, harmonize, and have access to our construct that we call money. Where all that has been extracted from the Mother Earth, from the bodies of men, women, and children, from the body of the oceans, from the sky, from the bodies of the flying ones, the swimming ones, the creepy crawly ones, the four-legged ones, from the plants, from the standing nation, the trees, from the stones, from the soil, from the waters, from the internal organs of the Mother Earth, coal, gold, oil, from the five-fingered one's goodness, from our love, from our psyches and from our souls, from each place from which it has been extracted and gathered, from all the places where the flow of what is needed for cycling, spiraling life has been confined, directed, channeled into ways that do not serve thriving life or love or light, that do not serve future. All of this decimation of the beauty, harmony, balance, substance, and the sacred movement of life is now here recognized, reconciled, revered, and placed in the healing hands and volition of a deep and holy co-creation, is now released, flowing out, and flowing out, a dam of life released to the places most critical, to the places most generative, to the places most restorative, to the places most joyful, to the places most creative for the wholeness and integrity of interbeing, to the places most sacred, to the places most affirmative of our true desire and our deepest consent to live unto 7 generations, to live with all our relations on this sacred, thriving, powerful earth, to align with her boundless creativity, ingenuity, and unconditional love in the creation of endless, ever-evolving life. We give our love here. We give our place in fearless generosity here. We give our faith here. We give our place in radical abundance here. We give our consent here. With this opening, we break the bondage that was law over love. We open and prepare ourselves to love the future in ways that the scarcity paradigm would not allow. We give this third drawer power and ask it to give us future. With our participation in this gathering, with the sacred gift of our volition, from the place on the sacred hoop of life that we have been given to uphold, we open this field of the third drawer to receive the future of the very highest possibility for life, light, and love. May all that this flow encounters be touched and transformed in whatever way is right by this currency of consciousness that has reached out to us and flows into and through the future consciousness that we are growing into. Holy life, holy future, please guide and direct us. Show us the ways. So this is a call for those who are holding the wealth. I want to point out that there's only one place that that wealth could ever have come from. And that place is from the earth, from life itself. And so to be hoarding wealth is actually to be hoarding life, to be withholding life from life as life is crying out. As all the young, not only of the humans, but of all the animals and plants are crying out. And so we support, we hold a place to have that understanding that it's not a foolish thing to release that wealth at this time. That wealth has to be released as life back to life, and soon as possible. So I wanted to leave it there. Thank you.
Woman stands shining. Can't even say that name without my entire spirit lifting up and my spine coming into alignment. Vandana, Woman stands shining, and we are grandmothers. We are grandmothers. Can you feel the energy of the grandmothers reaching out with fearless generosity That is regenerative health. When the grandmothers speak from the soul of their love for our children, that is regenerative health. Difficult for me to speak after hearing this prayer. The second iteration of climate change and consciousness was called the power of generosity before it was usurped by the pandemic. And you have reinstated it. Woman stands shining. Climate change and consciousness is devoted to this intergenerational collaboration. I want to welcome Dr. Shamini Jain, who has inspired me with her beautiful, brilliant spirit and her fearless creativity and bringing the power of creativity back into healthcare where it belongs. All of the panelists here are aspects of what I believe regenerative health truly is. Welcome, Dr. Shamini Jain.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. It is such an honor to be on this panel. And first, happy Diwali to everyone. And thank you, Vandana ji, for being with us on such an auspicious day. For those who don't know about Diwali, it's kind of like the Christmas for us in a way. It's the festival of lights. And it's really a Hindu holiday. In one way, you can say the return of Ram and Sita back in the celebration by lighting the diyas on the darkest night of the time was a return back to the triumph of light-based leadership. One could see it that way. And in Jainism, I'm a Jain, we also celebrate this day as the day that Mahavir attained moksha, or liberation. So in any way that we look at it, it's a very auspicious day for us to be having this conversation. And thank you so much, Stephanie, and everyone involved in helping us come together on such a beautiful day in discussion. So much has been said that I wouldn't want to repeat that, but I will just say, Women Stand Shining, thank you so much for that beautiful prayer on money. It inspired me, actually, and rather than read it all here, because I know we have many wise people to share today, I'm just going to send a link in the chat to the perspectives of money, regeneration, and energy that Sri Aurobindo and the Mother also put forth in their prophecies and their descriptions of how do we stand back in our power. You know, some people like to say, take the power back, taking power. And I've been reflecting on this a lot. And for me, it's not a taking of power. You don't take power back. It's you stand in power. You can talk about speaking truth to power, or you can talk about standing in truth and power and allowing that to move through you. As Pat said earlier, I loved your description of culture, Pat, and I'd love for somebody to put that in the chat because, you know, we are essentially agents of the largest biofield, if you want to say, that exists here on this planet, which is the planet herself. It's Gaia herself. You know, in Jainism, for those who may know about it, for those who don't, our biggest tenet really is what we call ahimsa, non-violence. And so well before COVID, you would see, of course, Jain monks and nuns who would always walk with mupatis, or cloths around the mouth. It wasn't because they were afraid of contracting a disease. It was because they recognized deeply the interdependence of all things and a resolve out of love and connection with all things to do as little harm as possible. So typically Jain monks and nuns travel on foot. You may see them walking, of course, with the mupatis, but also with brooms to sweep away insects, because it's that level of conscious choice making that they have made. Now, some may consider that extreme. I mean, certainly when we look at our world, we can say that the choices that we have made as a collective family have been extreme. And really what we're talking about is moving away from the false sense of separatism that has plagued all of the systems on our planet, the influence on agriculture, the influence on health, the influence on our consumer choices, all of that. And ultimately, you know, for me, the power of the reconnection of relationship with each other, with the earth, with animals, with viruses, with all of it, is what helps give us the motivation to make the right choices. We have beautiful people that have done the analyses that help us understand. We know that this way is not working. We know that it's drawn in separatism. I don't want to belabor that. I think everyone here understands the issue. We understand that. For me, ultimately, it is about rekindling that relationship and putting spirit first. It's always been spirit first. So these ideas of separatism that are plaguing health, you know, just as an aside, some of you may know this, but if you haven't, because it's breaking news, of course, all of you are probably aware that some of these drug company fueled solutions to mental health, which are not solutions at all, not only in some sense disempower our human family for addressing things like mental health issues. You know, many of you know I give talks on this all the time. We do know, for example, that 75% of the effects of antidepressants on depression are due to what we call placebo effects or natural history effects, which speak to us about the power of our consciousness. We put faith in that agent. So what happens if we put faith in ourselves? Well, first of all, we would be doing much better to not disrupt the planet with toxic chemicals that disrupt our water supply, because we do know that things like Prozac and fluoxetine and other derivatives of that are destroying our water supply. So we know that. So there's not only a sense of disempowerment by saying you must take this drug to address your mental suffering, which, by the way, I was taught when I sat in medical school for my learning in clinical psychology. We literally had residents telling medical students that if someone had a diagnosis of depression, they would have to be on antidepressants for the rest of their life. This is the dogma that is being taught from the lens of separatism to medical students. And then we have these toxic chemicals that are now plaguing the water supply. Well, guess what? Now there's a lot of news talking about how some of these antidepressants may help in reducing COVID symptomatology. Now, on one hand, the scientists will say that's very exciting. And surely it could be, but the question remains, why are we not looking at the indigenous medicine perspectives and the medicine that is there for addressing these very same issues that are not toxic to our water streams, that are not toxic, that are actually coming from a place of the deep understanding of the spirit of the plants, as well as the energetic vibration of the plants, as well as the chemistry. So it's not just toxic chemistry. Chemistry itself is not toxic. And so we want to kind of get out of that either or thinking. Chemistry is in everything. It's in the food that we eat. It's in the way that we think. So we have to take the toxicity out of these systems, understanding that the systems itself, whether we're talking about chemistry, whether we're talking about money, the system itself is pure. It's our overlay on it. And ultimately, it comes back to our conscious choice making, and it comes back to the realization of our non-separatism with everything that is there. That is what drives Ahimsa, the nonviolent decision making that guides our action, which is not passive. Ahimsa is not passive. Ahimsa is a conscious choice making that comes place from the deep feeling of interconnection that we all have. And so for me personally, what it often means is that I need to go sit in the forest because I live in the digital world most of my life. Most of us do. We're constantly interacting through this medium, especially these days. And I own my choices and my unskillfulness in some of my choices personally. And I resolve through my relationship with Gaia to do better in every moment, because it does begin with us. Yes, we have to look at the macro, but we also have to look at the micro, our own lives and our own conscious decision making. And so for this personally, this is where I'm at. And my refuge is then coming back ultimately to the relationship of us as a wholeness, as a one. Thank you so much for having me be part of this.
Thank you, Shamini.
Stephanie, could I inform you that we have Osprey Oriole Lake has joined us from COP.
Oh, wow. Oh, I'm
He would be
so
able to give,
honored.
yeah.
Thank you, Osprey. I have been reveling in your gifts. Please, we'd love to hear from you.
This beautiful conversation. I just tuned in 5 minutes ago and hearing from Shamini, your beautiful words. So I'm not sure what your topic is. I was just informed by Jim Garrison to call in from the COP. So here I am, but I don't know what would be helpful at this point, or like I said, I don't want to interrupt other speakers. So what would be most helpful for you?
Well, your presence is a delight. You absolutely belong here. And even though Jim has lost his connection, he's still accompanying me. So I've been wanting to connect with you. So this is as good an opportunity as any. What I want to speak to, we're talking about Code Red for Health Justice and the meaning of regenerative health. What is being revealed here is the inextricable relationship between the environment and personal health, and how we are the expression of culture by being the vehicles of Mother Earth. I'm a neuroscientist. I created Climate Change and Consciousness. And what I speak to is health empowerment, is a regenerative health movement that prepares a cadre of regenerative health practitioners at the grassroots level, that we have the capacity through our own original brilliance to care for our families, for our communities, for each other. I've created the Regenerative Healthcare Library that does very much what Dr. Jane has been talking about, which is fusing indigenous wisdoms, traditional ancient wisdoms of healthcare that have been time tested, as well as frequently clinically tested, with the best of neuroscience. So we are emblematic of a global regeneration core, which is really the launch of this iteration of this series for Humanity Rising. And I do want to mention that you can join the Hive and create a global regeneration core for yourself, for your community members. And everything that you're doing, Osprey, feels in sync with everything that we're talking about here, is relevant. And we have been women voicing truth here. Dr. Usman Ali Palm was originally going to be with us. His travel in West Africa put him in a place where he didn't have internet connection. So it's interesting, the two gentlemen, Jim and Usman, my dear friend Usman, who is a wonderful advisor to Climate Change and Consciousness, and who supports very much the youth who are here from Sierra Leone. But those two gentlemen didn't make it here today. So we are the voices of women primarily. Aisha speaking for the youth of Sierra Leone. There are gentlemen present, but Aisha has summed up the messages of those youth. And I really want to honor Aisha as being one of the courageous women here, speaking their own truths with such passion and commitment and genuine guidance. And anything in that genre, Osprey, knowing your incredible work with women. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, thank you. And thank you all for your powerful words. And I see dear colleagues are on this call as well. So greetings to all of you. I'm sort of, I think where I would begin is the balance of the healer and the warrioress. Because I'm finding myself here at COP26 in Glasgow, and it is not a healing space.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a healing space.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very difficult space.
Mm-hmm.
We are witnessing, not unexpectedly, the incredible failure of governments to guide us at this really critical time, both through the pandemic and the climate crisis and the interlocking crises of gender and racial and economic injustices being played out right in front of our eyes. And it's not that there isn't progress being made here, but the progress is really coming from the people and the advocacy of people's movements. And of course, health is on everyone's mind because it's not an in-person meeting, it's a mask-to-mask meeting. I'm only unmasked because I came back to where I'm staying, but it's a very unusual negotiation in the fact that you're really not seeing people's faces very much, and there's a lot of COVID testing going on, as there should be, to keep it safe. But it really brings into question the health of our precious Mother Earth, and how Mother Earth is really crying out for us to stand for her. And that's why I was mentioning, that balance between the healer and the warrioress, because she also needs fighters and people standing up for her waters, her forests, her oceans, her seeds, the climate, and just the crying out from Mother Earth, letting us know about her ill health because of our activities over a relatively short period of time. Actually, we've done a lot of harm in a very short period of time as a species. So I think that's what we're seeing here, is just the long-term playing out of root causes of unwellness for a very long time, systems of oppression, of patriarchal institutions, racism, colonization, our economic frameworks based in capitalism, and how these systems that we've been living in for a long time are completely out of balance with the health of Mother Earth, with Pachamama, with the web of life, and our own physical health, our own bodies. And so now that system is winding itself into the end result that should be expected when you are not living in a healthy system. So I think that there's a need for that balance of how we create spaces of healing and spaces of care and wholeness, and where we grow our gardens, and we have a plethora of solutions, from agroecology to indigenous knowledge to understanding feminist economics and policies like rights of nature that we can put into motion. I don't think we have a solutions problem. I think we have experience with these systems of oppression that have been carried out for a very long time. And so that's where we also do services, and as my Indigenous colleagues always help me warrior up, like really we have to fight while we're also creating spaces of healing. And I think we need both spaces where we're direct action and we're in direct confrontation. Harm, while we also have spaces of healing where we're generating the new world that we want to be. And I have a lot of faith and excitement about what people are doing. Like I said, I don't think that we're having a solutions problem. I think that we really need to stop a lot of bad actors from continuing on the path. And I was just giving a talk the other day at the United Nations about, how it's actually pitiful that it would just be pitiful to have humanity suffer at the hands of corporate greed and political power and hubris. Like, those are not really, some sort of honorable way for humanity to step off this planet. So we need a different vision going forward. So we're here with a delegation of frontline grassroots and Indigenous women and many other women from all over the world, really fighting for feminist climate policies, fighting for the rights of Mother Earth, for the rights of nature, and really presenting a very different vision of how we can move forward. So I'll just leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Osprey. I think what Jim has created here is so gorgeous. This weaving of this conversation with what is actually going on there in Glasgow, and the way in which you define that space that you're in that is not a healing space, and how we are creating a healing space here outside the COP with our passion. And I resonate so much with the video that you shared with us at the opening of this series. And I reiterated to myself after watching that, I will not allow my children and the children of the future to be sacrificed to corporate greed. That to me is the healer and the warrioress coming together. And the actions that we take out of that spirit, I believe, are really what this gathering is about, what the Global Regeneration Corps is about. So thank you for bringing your voice from COP26. And I'm so glad that Jim signaled you to do that. And this is a good segue, I think, to Dr. Claire Wilox. And the thing that I want to say before Claire speaks is that my perception as a neuroscientist is that consciousness is somatic. And in order for us to truly recommend, embody, and provide regenerative healthcare, we have to have actual applications that are physiological, that tap into the health consequences of climate crisis. That's what I'm developing in my library. That's what I hope to train regenerative healthcare practitioners to do. And Claire and I came together because we believe that biofield therapies and therapies that are attuned to people needing regenerative healthcare are available and easy to transmit, particularly during the crucial time of pregnancy and childbirth. And the magnitude of health consequences on every holistic level imaginable of the industrialization of the pre and perinatal time in our lives. So with that, I would like to introduce Dr. Claire Wilox.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Thank you. I'm so honoured to be part of this discussion, and what's come across to me so clearly is, and it's something we've discussed as well, is about the level of how articulation and the language that everybody's used in the listening to Vandana, listening to Women Stand Shining, listening to yourself, Stephanie, the way that you can, I think there's flower, fruit, flower, and flourish. It's just the the richness of the dialogue has been really, really beautiful. I'm also, like Osprey, I'm also in Glasgow just now. I live and I work in Glasgow, and it's really amazing that today is the Festival of Lights. We just changed into our winter time on Sunday, so I actually realised that I would have been signing on an hour late if I hadn't double checked the time. And when we started this discussion today, I actually was in the lights. You know, it was a nice bright room, and we say in Glasgow about the nights are drawing in, so it's quite dark. But Shamini had said about, I think, being return of light and leadership. So I'll come to Diwali first, because it's how can we stand in the darkness? How can we stand within? I work within the healthcare. I work within allopathic healthcare, and believe that everything is about energy. I believe that money is a form of energy. But how can we be in that darkness and yet know that there is a universal organizer, know that everything does come into balance. Today is the Festival of Lights. Tomorrow, we'd also discussed it, tomorrow is Guy Fawkes Day. That's a day that they try to blow up the Houses of Parliament. So we do need disruptors in this world. We do need people to come and challenge the status quo, and we do need to get out of that matrix of fear, because fear is what controls us. Yes, we have a pandemic, but that pandemic is also there to up-level us, and it's given us a pregnant pause, which we're now coming out of, but it's given us all time, I think, to realise what is important in our lives. And Dita, I want to thank Jim for his beautiful, beautiful opening to this this talk today. And I won't talk for too long, but beyond that, Dita had said that, where's the welcome? I was, where's the welcome? The welcome is missing. And that's where I think Stephanie and I share that passion, is like, where is that welcome to the beings that are going to be our future? What is the planet that we're leaving for for the generation that Aisha is bringing forward? Where is the sacredness of birth? And Osprey talked about, about the healing spaces. What kind of environment do we have in hospitals? Do we have access to water? Do we have access to beautiful food, to green spaces? How are we honouring rituals of childbirth? Stephanie brought in the grandmothers. So we're honouring the babies that are coming through, and really, really welcoming them as our future in all their diversity and all their wholeness. And how are we honouring our elders? How are we honouring our Indigenous wisdom bearers? And it's really, that's coming back to like honouring the cycles of life and death. How we come into the world often is how we come out. If we come in and struggle and resistance, are we going to struggle and resist as we leave? So it's honouring birth and death as most beautiful and sacred processes. I'm not here to, I can't here to preach to, I'm not here to preach to anybody, because I'm here to learn, and I'm here to be in partnership with everybody. And I'm so, so grateful that I'm on this panel and can be part of the discussion, and really not just see myself. I used to have, it's that struggle of being in duality and polarity. It's like there's a right and the wrong, and it's like, no, everything just is. And we're all here at this time to shine and to be leaders, and to hold the light and to do the best that we can. So I couldn't write I didn't write a paper for this event. And I was just like, well, actually just turn up and be authentically who you are. And I do believe that it's actually moving beyond duality, the honouring that, yes, women are shining the lights, but they're also birthing our future. They're birthing the men, and that we are here to support the men who are there to support us. And it's about it's about us coming together. So it's Mother Earth and Father Sky. And that knowing that if we hold that sacredness of birth, if we understand that energy is everything, and protecting that energy of birth, and by really nurturing those that are birthed by the mother and connecting with the mother in her greater self, I believe we do have a bright a bright future that we can have the courage to believe in. And that's courage is with love, and that we lead in light and love and in connection with each other. Another thing that Stephanie and I had spoken about was about red tents. There being red tents in every village and organisation, and I do believe it's following the lead from our Indigenous elders and leaders by actually coming together in circle, knowing how powerful we can be in circles together, knowing that women and men coming together in circles and creating that kind of that third energy. It's not just about, yes, it's important that we all individuate and we all claim the light that we have in this, in this life that we have on Mother Earth, but that we come together, that we tap into that field, that amazing potential, that actually everything's going to be okay. Everything is perfect. And if we claim that and come out of the darkness, everything, I believe, in my humble opinion, will be okay. So I had so much else to say, because I listened to absolutely everybody. I listened to Vandana saying about the chemical empire, and I remember Michelle O'Donnell wrote that the book about childbirth in the age of plastics, and that was in 2011. And we're still very much within that that age of plastics and chemicals within healthcare. But for us to just come back to the simplicity, being grateful for the bodies that we have, for being grateful for the earth, for the air that we're breathing, for being grateful for the earth that we stand on, for hugging the trees, for connecting with the earth, and for connecting with Father Sky as well. We're here for a reason, and that reason is to shine our light on our leadership. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire. I want to speak to one question. I find it difficult to follow the chat when I'm so absorbed with the panelists, so forgive me for that. I did notice one important question was a request for the definition of regenerative healthcare. And I'd like to respond to that by sharing with you some of my own research that's coming out in my book that'll be released next year, which is called A Memoir of an Embryologist, How I Discovered the Secret of Resilience. So my investigations into human development really inform me of the true meaning of regeneration and resilience. And that true meaning is our birthright, and it's a physiological somatic birthright. It is encoded within the nervous system, within the human nervous system. There is capacity for resilience beyond anything that you could imagine. And that is what lives underneath the trauma. That is what lives underneath the despair that we're all dealing with, that I can tell you, honestly, I deal with every day. I find that this time that we're living in is a time of great activation for me as a survivor of domestic violence, as a survivor of sexual abuse, as someone who didn't learn about human resilience from my own family members. And I am so thankful that many of you did, but I did not. I learned about human degradation from my family members. And it is my investigation into the causative factors that would allow people to lose the connection with their original brilliance and their resilience that led me to understand the regenerative capacities that are accessible to us within our own physiology. And I am profoundly grateful that I have discovered that my own evolution takes me into places that are a total surprise to me. The fact that I'm here with you, that I have brought you all together, that I posit a cultural library of regenerative health resources is the evidence that instructs me continuously of the power of human resilience, and tapping into that, accessing that through awareness, through consciousness, through touch, through activating the biofields that are our birthright. That is regenerative health. And I completely believe in its fusion with the best of allopathy, with the best of neuroscience. But just as we must honor our Mother Earth, of whom we are an expression, just as we must listen to the voices of First Peoples, so must we listen to the truth of our original brilliance within our own nervous systems. So we're coming to the close of this incredible gathering. And I would actually like to close with some regenerative practices. I would like us as a regenerative community to integrate the magnitude of what has been transmitted here. I personally am deeply moved by every moment that we've shared together. And I'd like to suggest that we, either in seated or standing, bring the soles of our feet, into relationship with the earth beneath us. She who is bringing the essence of woman stand shining. I just want to keep saying, woman stands shining. Let the relationship with Mother Earth that brings woman stand shining forward in all of us resonate up through the soles of our feet, through the connective tissue of our bodies. The soil of our bodies is alive and receptive to the mother, on whose flesh we stand, on whose being we depend. And let's feel that in the soles of our feet. And let the four corners of your feet wrap their tender, yearning structures around her body, so that you really feel her as she empowers us to be voices for our living earth. This is where we become a regenerative health core, from the core of our beings. I'd like to invite you to place your fingertips, any fingertips, right under the collarbones. So let whatever fingertips fall there. So my middle fingertip, very top of the finger, is falling right under the bony protuberance of the clavicle. And then let the palm of your hand rest on your chest, right above your breasts. The sacred site under the collarbone is called the wings of the heart. And the place where your palms are resting, that connective tissue right above the nipples is called the mother. So with the soles of your feet embracing her flesh, the palms and the tips of your fingers sending instruction to your body to open to her guidance. Let's all breathe together. 3 breaths of life with the exhalation twice as long as the inhalation. If you feel as I do, heart opening, tears rising, let that empower you to be a voice for our living earth and to say, no, I will not let my children be sacrificed to corporate greed. No. I will find my original brilliance and voice my truth. And let's seal that by bringing the pads of all the fingers and the palms of the hands together, a gesture that's familiar, prayer, namaste, however you experience it and know it. If you allow just a slight pressure, that is an attunement of all of the biofields in your body, as well as all the other wonderful things this gesture does. It also attunes all your biofields simultaneously. So let that organic integration that is your birthright to find your alignment and your center. Feel it physiologically, feel it in every cell of your body. And I see that Jim, I believe, has returned. And so, Jim, if you can make the appropriate administrative closure that I have utterly neglected, I would be grateful. You're muted, Jim.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. And thank you all for your forbearance as I've navigated from one city to another here in Northern California, trying to find internet and experiencing what it's like to be disrupted and yet gallantly trying to reconnect. So Stephanie, I got most of the panel.
You're frozen there, Jim.
Yes, looks like Jim's internet is still challenged.
So I'll do my best. And Jim, you interrupt me if you can. I want to send people to the Hive to register for the Global Regeneration Corps, to make your place there so that you can connect with people around the world who you can engage in solutions-based activism with. Climate change and consciousness. I don't know if anyone was able to put links in the chat. I didn't do that, but You can find us. The paradigm that I have developed of a regenerative healthcare cadre, all of that is available on the Ubiverse. And you can find me easily through climate change and consciousness and the TAR approach for the resolution of shock and trauma, which is my design. I want to express oh, is Jim back?
No, sorry. I just wanted to say we want to make a group photo, please. So if everybody on the panel can turn on the video, we will make this group photo.
Great. That's awesome. How wonderful. So if everybody could turn on your video, that'd be amazing. I am so delighted that this, I believe, may have been the first program that was available in simultaneous Spanish translation. That is of great significance to me. Spanish is the language of my heart, and my communities in Spanish-speaking countries will be so appreciative of this. And I want to say a special thank you to the youth of Sierra Leone. Not everyone got to speak. Aisha was your delegated spokesperson, but their videos are available on the Ubiverse. So we have videos from Yusuf and Alpha in which they share with you their projects, their courage in their communities in Sierra Leone. Please watch those. And if you want to support their actions, you can do that directly by contacting me. I'm so grateful that you were able to be here. And please, if you can, for just a moment, unmute and say a few words before we separate. Yusuf, Alpha. Yusuf, can you unmute? We'd love to hear your voice. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Yusuf. Greetings.
And Al-Haji and Adamazit. Hey!
Adama in Makeni with Alaji. Hello.
Hi. Hi. And perhaps you can join. There is a group that will meet after. And if the youth from Sierra Leone can attend, that would give them opportunity to speak more directly with other people. Thank you, everyone.
And after chat, Zoom link, is it in the chat?
It is in the chat, yes. And it's just been posted again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Special gratitude to our panelists, to the youth of Sierra Leone. I want to honor Michelle Wilcox, who has been the liaison in the background. She is an eco-auntie, to coin the phrase of one of the climate change and consciousness community members, Lisa Rimbach. has created the eco-anti movement. We're all eco-antis. Thank you. I also want to mention Sue Lennox and Youth Leading the World, Oz Green, the projects that we're supporting in Sierra Leone are a fusion of support networks from Oz Green, Youth Leading the World, Climate Change and Consciousness, and now Humanity Rising. So everyone coming together to support the efforts of the youth in Sierra Leone. We also have Walking the Land projects on other continents, all a part of Climate Change and Consciousness. So please check us out, and you can contribute to supporting the youth movements throughout the world. Regenerative health, personally, collectively, and always for our Mother Earth. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Stephanie. Tomorrow we will be on day 5. The theme will be the Earth Charter 2.0.
I'm joining the after chat. I hope to see you there, friends in Sierra Leone. I'm clicking on the
I will
next
join
Zoom.
it also. And Georg, are there any other administrative messages that I have failed to mention?
No, we're good for today. Thank you so much, and see you
Okay.
tomorrow, hopefully with Jim.
Thank you very much. And I will get into the after chat. Okay, thank you.